Welcome to episode 50 of the Sourcing Challenge Show. I am your host, Mark Lundgren. In this episode, I sat down with Dmytro Ponochovnyi from Ukraine. And as always, asked him how he got started in sourcing.
It's a funny story how I've got to the sourcing. So my first education is sociology. So I'm sociology, social studies. And 5 years ago, in 2014, I was in ISEC. It's NGO organization. And we were creating different projects and stuff. And one of my friends, he should have been on a conference, IT HR Kiev, which was in the near the Kiev, so it's a suburb area. And he in the evening he called me at 10 p.m. Okay, tomorrow at 6 you should be on conference. Because I'm really ill, I have a temperature. Can you back up me? I'm like, okay, tomorrow at 6, so in 7 hours, I don't know, but I'm like, okay, yeah, I will do this. And I was on this conference volunteering because I really enjoy all this conference stuff. You can listen to the speakers, drink a lot of coffee, eat food, and it's for free for you. So that's cool. There was, I've heard about recruitment firstly, and it was really nice. It was Andriy Stitsenko from Relocate Me, telling about relocation developers from different countries and recruitment in this area. And I was listening to this story and was like, wow, cool, how you search these guys, how you work with it. And I've go to him networking, bring in some coffee and hey, can we together connect in Facebook or something? And he was like, yeah, cool. And do you want to have some job? I'm like, okay, interesting, what is it? And okay, I will write you. And 2 months later, I was forgetting about this, and he was writing me, okay, can we meet in the city center? I will show you something. Yeah, we were in co-working, and he described me in 2 hours what is recruitment, what is sourcing and sales. So I was like, wow. And firstly, I was lead generation specialist. So I was searching for decision makers, different in Germany and Netherlands, for CTO, engineering managers, for Relocate Me. And it was my part-time job. And in 1 year, I became full-time sourcer. And it was really good because Andrew really helped me to get into this. We had 1 hour each week session with describing how I should write emails, what it should be, because I was on remote. So before this year, I was working mostly on remote. And so learning was the main part, how to get all this information. Yeah, and this was my first experience. And after 2 years, I've decided that I need to grow up in my skills. And I wrote to Good Call in Europe. It's also a very known company where Joseph Kadlec's one of the founders, and started a sourcer job there, and also learned a lot. And that was my first steps, and I really like it. So I never thought about that I would be a sourcer, but now I understand that it's lifelong path, and it's very cool specialization.
Absolutely. So other than having weekly calls with Andrew, who did you learn from, or what did you read, or how did you kind of get all the knowledge on how to become better?
I'm really enjoyed that I started in actually Relocate Me, because it's good alma mater, good school of sourcing. We already had their sourcers and recruiters specialization, which 5 years ago in Ukraine was really rare to see. Of course, in America, Europe, it was already 2 parts of where you can develop. But in Ukraine, it was sourcer is junior recruiter, and in 1 year after sourcing, you should become a recruiter or you are not developing. And we had our own handbook where all processes described. And I really recommend for companies to do this, like small academy. Yeah, it's time consuming, but you should really create this and update it in some document where you can get this. So there were like templates of our main emails. Also there were like sourcing tools, what you need to install. So like if newbie sourcer gets into the process, like person knows like what to do. And but as I was on remote, I should have found like other resources. So and why I also decided to continue in sourcing, because naturally I'm really curious about different things you like look. I really like investigate. So if I like couldn't find someone's email, I really start reading a lot of articles, a lot of stuff to like there should be something into this person. Even like in my childhood, I was helping like a lot of relatives and like my neighborhood guys to install like Windows, to reinstall some programs. And when you can't find some driver for sound card, you spend like for 3 hours to find it somewhere in the internet and solution. So that is why I really like to follow like blogs like Irina Shamaeva for the custom search engines, SourceCon in like Arimedia, in like the main source for all this information. It's really open. So a sourcer is a job where you can don't need to be on like university degree or spend thousands of dollars to this. You can just find open source information to start and then improve your skills by some courses or like LinkedIn courses or something else. So I recommend like blogs like Recruiting Brain Food by Hang Lee, Hire It, Solve It, Recruiting Daily by Ryan Larry. Also articles of well-known sources like you, Mark. So you should just like find out in the internet like top sourcers or sourcing blogs, and you will find all of these cool guys. So it's like Bull Black Belt by Glenn Casey, Dean Da Costa, also like Aaron Lins, you know. Also, I've learned from Recruitment Academy, from Good Call. They have own certification for step-by-step, like from Sourcer, Sourcer Part 2, Recruiter, Recruitment Manager. So it's also a very good course.
And in terms of the kind of tools you use today, what's your go-to tools or processes, and you know, how do you kind of work on that?
In our like sourcing industries, there is still a pan domination of LinkedIn. So of course we cannot like live without it, but I try to search different options. So of course LinkedIn is a huge database. So, but you should use LinkedIn Smart. So in case of tools, I use LinkedIn and like Amazing Hiring Extension or like Amazing Hiring Platform. These tools are really good to find social profiles. And it really helps you to find email address. For example, in LinkedIn string, you can see like person, like candidate always, like in most cases, changes this name to something custom like login or some nickname, and you can Google this with Gmail and use it. Also Sales Navigator extension, which is not currently working. Still, I found that it working if you have been installed it. So you should find like, you know, this like archive of CRX files for Chrome. So you should just Google Sales Navigator CRX and find out it and download it customly and unpack it as in developer mode. So if you will have a problems with it, you just can write me. I've prepared some instruction how to do this, and seems like from our experience it's still working. I don't know, will they completely shut down server or not, but now you still can use it, but can't find it in Chrome store. So Yeah, it's also a very useful tool, especially for mail search. And different scrapers like Phantom Buster, you know, this very popular last days, especially in MatcHR, in my current company. But you should be really accurate with this too, like, because LinkedIn is very strict about all of these tools. And also some mail search tools like HireTool, Contact Out, like Numeria, which 50/50, and SQL. So that's my black belt that I use right now.
And you've worked a lot across the world, you know, work like finding people for Australia and Europe. And how do you get into a new market? Like when you start a new role where it's maybe a market you haven't sourced for yet, like how do you familiarize yourself with that market and find out like, how do I need to do things differently to source in this market?
So I've really learned a lot from my my previous I changed a job last month, so go to MatcHR, a local team, so to be like on site and more present with colleagues. But before that, I worked in small startup like Function.io. It's an agency, but on like we were looking for some senior roles like engineering manager, CTO, etc. And we, like Neil, founder of Function, also taught me a lot of stuff about how to research market, how to get into this. So we've created our like own strategy. So first of all, we review companies that are top 10 in this country. So for example, we are starting search for Korea. It's new market for us. And firstly, I've read a lot of Quora, a lot of articles about like what are top startups in this region, what are top companies in this country. And I know that in Korea, from articles, they have like big brands like Kakao, like Samsung, and so on. 10 companies that rules almost 90% of the market, and not so many big, small startups. So I know that we should work with people from this like 5 top startups, and this are our top 10. Also, I research what universities, like top 3 university in this country. Of course, if it's US or UK, it's like 10, 15 universities. In Ukraine, it's like 5 main. You know that people from these companies and universities should be really good. Then you started evaluating what are meetups in this country, how different companies, international companies have presence there. So, and we have a Trello board with all this information where all other sources can contribute and have all this info in one place. So it really helps then to plan your strategy, to find donor companies. So for example, I have a job for like small startup, and I've researched who on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's also some insights field where you can like do small search of where the startup hiring from, what companies and universities, and it also helps get the idea what actually your partner, your client wants to see. And and then we research and start in create our like outreach campaigns and so on. The same works for other companies. So you should firstly find trends. So for example, we find out that in Brazil, really good market. A lot of recruiters right now searching there. It's like El Dorado for now for relocation, because they have strong startup market. We like started firstly contacting for Singapore, but then understand that like Brazilian guys don't really want to relocate to Singapore if they have option of Europe or English speaking country like Australia or UK. So we understand that we should create campaigns more on English-speaking countries, or like Germany or Netherlands.
Yeah.
So you should find those small trends and understand which market works for this company, which countries works with each other, and especially with relocation.
What's been the toughest country for you to source in?
So I would say that right now, like Germany and Netherlands are quite tough because they are very competitive. And in Spain is Barcelona. So they are like startup hubs, but when you write, for example, in Amsterdam for local developers, so everything that's connected to IT guys, it's hard. It's tough because you just can't like write simple email, even with like if you personalized company name and like country and so on, they would just not answer because market is so competitive and have presence of a lot of companies. So you should like follow up. You should write really personalized and read profile really well. In Latin America, it's easier. So they are more open to communicate with you. And like Asia is also different range. So maybe it's kind of hard to communicate from people from China because they are not really like they are answering, they are interested in case of skills, but not often they open to relocate because they are more into like their country is their brand, so they are eager to stay home right now, which was like insight for me because I thought, okay, maybe they are open to relocate. And it's tough to work with also Australia because immigration laws are quite hard. And in some, I would say it's also hard to work with South Africa because not so many startups there. And it's also hard to relocate people from there. They are really open to relocate, to move for opportunities, and English is really good, but still hard to when it comes to different visas and so on. So that's my tough and favorite countries, but I really like to hire globally. So it opens new people for you, it opens new markets, and it's always super interesting.
Well, more and more companies are interested in Ukrainian developers and either starting an office in Ukraine or relocating them. What would be your advice for a sourcer that has to start looking at Ukraine as a market?
Yeah, it's Ukraine, you're right, it's very popular market right now, especially for outsourcing and outstaffing, because we have interesting schools or IT schools that from even older times where I like engineering was strong in like Belarus, Ukraine, and so on. The problem here, if you would like to relocate like Ukrainian developers, still even after years, not so many people aware of different taxation systems. So even if developers would have like much more money on hands, like in Germany, for example, the taxation is different. So in Ukraine, we have for private entrepreneurs, which is main system for most of digital specializations here. It's 5% plus some additional taxes, but it's smaller, which is very like competitive for like US, for Europe, to stand off to like open offices here.
Yeah.
So if it comes to relocation, you should really find a person who already knows something about Netherlands rules and so on. So you can easily convince this person to relocate for loud name or for experience abroad. But for companies who are like setting offices here, it's main advice that it's very interesting in case of price and value that it can gives you. So It in Kiev, especially, it becomes more and more competitive right now. So maybe to look at some
outside Odessa or something like that.
Yeah, Lviv, Odessa, Dnipro, which is still strong and lower expectations from IT guys. If it goes to not non-IT, it's a little bit easier to set up. We still have good English, maybe not as strong as in like, I don't know, Czech Republic maybe, but still quite a lot of people know English. And for example, in sourcer's perspective, it's really like smart and good people here, ready to be recruiters, sourcers, digital marketologists, and so on. So maybe relocate person for non-IT specialization will be harder for companies, but set office and outsource here, it's really good. So maybe consult some local companies where to better like rent office, and maybe consult local but good firms, get human resources here. It should work. So the main advice, we have like a lot of smart people with good English, so it's very good value proposition.
And Dima, if people want to stay in touch with you and follow you, what you're doing, how can they best do that?
So I'm open for any channel. So I've also sent you my Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I'm like quite often reading it. Also, you can find me in Telegram. But like, yeah, let's stay for Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Yeah.
Perfect. Look, thank you very much for your time and your insights.
Yeah, thank you too. I'm really glad to communicate with all people interested in sourcing. I really like it. And also in MatcHR, where I'm working now, we have really good people interested in sourcing in Kiev. So if you want to meet me, of course, after all this corona will end, and write me online, I'm open to help on any sourcing or other topics.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dima.
Yeah, thanks to you too. Have a nice day.
If you like this episode, please consider sharing it or any of the other episodes with a friend or a colleague who might be interested as well. And consider subscribing to the channel, which will help us reach more people and grow the community.